There are all sorts of sources in The Guardian, though, being quoted about this story.
Because I think they want to not... Even if there is a review, they don't want it in the public domain that they are reviewing it, because the pressure will be enormous.
This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So is the government going to U-turn on the winter fuel allowance? The Guardian has reported today on its front page that the government is looking at changing the policy after that massive public backlash which manifested itself in those terrible local election results for the Labour Party last week. Now, according to the front page of The Guardian, which is plugged better into the government, this Labour government, than you or me, apparently the government is considering changing the winter fuel allowance, which was a massive issue in those local elections and the by-election last week.
That's right. Of course, the voters punished Labour in those local elections, and it would mean that thousands of pensioners, if they do change this policy, would become eligible for the pension top-up payments, because it currently has an income cap of £11,500.
And what they're talking about, according to The Guardian, is changing the threshold when it would kick in. I think that won't work politically. I think they've got to get rid of it altogether.
That has been the criticism, that it might have some merit, but it has been terribly executed. But let's see what the Charity Director at Age UK, Caroline Abrahams, thinks about this. Caroline, great to see you again on this topic. We've discussed this with you before, of course. Now, we don't want pensioners to be going cold this winter, and we've always said that maybe there was some merit in taking it from the very rich, who don't, frankly, need this small amount of money in relative terms for them. But what would it tell you if this government do have to tinker with this and effectively do a U-turn?
Well, good morning. This is encouraging in the sense that we're now in May. It's nice-ish weather at the moment, but it won't be that long before next winter is with us. And of course, at Age UK, we're worrying about how's that going to be for older people, particularly those who lost their winter fuel payment when they really couldn't afford it. So it is the responsibility of the government to be thinking about how they support older people, how we all work together to support older people to get through the winter healthy, because it's coming and time is short. So from that point of view, any suggestion that they are looking at doing more, that would be very, very welcome. And of course, actually, we know that the Energy Department is thinking about long-term energy strategy and shorter-term measures as well. And there are things definitely that the government could do to make life better for older people when they're struggling with their fuel bills.
Are there any estimates, Caroline, of how many pensioners simply just were too scared to put the heating on in the last winter because they'd lost that £300?
Yeah, that's very hard to judge, actually. There aren't any official figures on that. But certainly it is something we heard from lots of older people, actually sometimes including older people who probably could have afforded to put the heating on, but were just frightened by the volatility of their energy bills. You know, you never know, do you, from one quarter to the next what they're going to do. And they've rocketed up and then they've stabilised a bit. And the problem is that saps the confidence of older people to be able to run their heating, even if objectively they probably could.
And of course they could apply for the pension credit, but it was incredibly complicated, the form.
This video is sponsored by Saily. Saily is a brand new eSIM service app. What it does is get you a local SIM card that you can use when you're traveling, so you don't have to pay those crazy roaming fees just to send a text back home. They've got eSIM plans in over 160 countries and 8 regions, so pretty much wherever you're going, they'll be able to make sure you're connected. So how does it work? Well, all you've got to do is hit our link in the description to download the app. It will work on iOS or Android. Buy a plan, you can choose the best time frame for you, and then just install the eSIM on your phone. When you land at your holiday destination, you can activate your plan instantly. Saily eSIMs only ever have to be installed once, so when you go on your next trip, you just buy a plan for a new country, turn that eSIM back on, and just like that, you could be watching the GB News YouTube channel. You can be connected anywhere you go, and you don't have to deal with patchy Wi-Fi in your hotels. So get sorted for your next trip by downloading Saily using the link in the description below, and if you use our code NEWS at checkout, you'll get an exclusive 15% discount on us.
It was incredibly complicated, the form. Was it 40 questions or 40 pages? And we know, Caroline, you know better than anybody, there are some pensioners who simply won't claim that sort of benefit because they, as my mum would say, I'm not taking benefits, I'm not going to claim social security.
Yeah, well, we
Too proud.
certainly would encourage any older person on a low income to apply for pension credit, and you can actually do it over the phone. So although it is a long form, you can ring up and if you can get through, and they will take you through it. And of course, AGK is here to help you with those forms as well. But the problem is too many people who are on a low income don't qualify. And that's really what you started your piece with, wasn't it? That £11,500 as the threshold is just too low. And, you know, you can be struggling on 12, 13, actually 14,000 isn't very much either, is it? And so really, I do hope that we'll think about extending the amount of support it gives all those pensioners who are missing out at the moment.
Do you roughly have a number at Age UK, Caroline, that you think that threshold should be set at?
Well, some people have said 14,000. There's an academic bit of work that's got into it, and I think the last time they looked at what would be a reasonable income to live on, a decent income to live on, it was about 14,000. Right. So, but that and that would make sense. But there are lots of other things the government could do as well if it doesn't want to do that, to get more money into the pockets of older people who missed out, and we're really worried about for the coming winter.
Well, Caroline, just briefly, what could they do? Because we know governments are notoriously against U-turns.
Yes, well, there's something called the Warm Homes Discount, which is run out of the Energy Department, and that goes to people at the moment mainly who are on pension credit. But there's no reason at all why the government couldn't extend the eligibility criteria so that many more older people became eligible for it, and that would really help and would plug much of the gap. And then another option, looking a bit further ahead, would be something called a social tariff, which is basically a discounted bill on your energy for anybody on a low income. That would help older people. It could help other groups in society too. And that's what some other countries have done, and it does make quite a lot of sense.
OK.
Fascinating. That's Caroline Abrahams, Charity Director at Age UK. As we said, Downing Street have moved very swiftly to deny this story in The Guardian.
There are all sorts of sources in The Guardian, though, being quoted about this story.
Because I think they want to not... Even if there is a review, they don't want it in the public domain that they are reviewing it, because the pressure will be enormous. But Labour MPs coming back to the Commons this week will be saying to their whips, will be saying to Number 10, get rid of it.
Yeah,
it's got to go.
But it looks ridiculous. You've been getting in touch at home. Andy said, so if Labour do a U-turn, it's because of pressure from reform, which means it's a victory for the real opposition. It's a really powerful point.
Yeah.
And...
well, Nigel told us, didn't he, yesterday? We talked to him at length on the programme yesterday. It was a massive issue.
Of course it was. But you see, we've just had, here we go, Martin, morning Martin, winter fuel allowance, the damage is done. I won't forget the fact that Reeves and Starmer even contemplated the idea. Before any sheep come on here and say it was a difficult decision, it wasn't. It was an easy decision against those that predominantly don't vote Labour and are not strongly unionised. It was a cowardly decision.
It wasn't just cowardly, it was cruel.